Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's some other helpful tips about churches, Bibles, just other helpful tips. Number one is that I'm going to give you something to research on the internet about Bibles, and it will be theoldest.org. This will give you a history of the 10 oldest Bibles that are known. And you'll notice in this list on the oldest.org that the King James Bible's not even mentioned. There's like your 10th or your, how's it go? It starts from 10 to 1, right? Well, you'll notice down and you get to the Geneva Bible. And you'll notice that the Geneva Bible was the Bible that was brought over by the Pilgrims to the United States. It is actually a complete Bible. And you'll notice the authors of it, Coverdale and Tyrrell or whatever. You'll notice the authors. What I'm saying here is it was the first actual Bible that was available to the public, to the general population. A lot of people will say, well, it's the King James. A lot of people right now are reading what's known as the Authorized King James. That's not the original 1611 King James. People have, believed that. That's just not true. If you get the original King James Bible as it was wrote in 1611, so what do we got? 1600, 1700, 1800, right? 1900, 2000, that's 500 years old. You go back and get the original King James Bible as wrote in 1611, it's not even the same text. What I mean is font. It's not wrote in the same font. Alms is spelled different. Things are just spelt different. And it's actually an older dialect. And it's not complete. Or the 1611 is actually complete and has 80 books in it. If you look at the Authorized King James Version Bible that you're reading now, it only has 66 books in it. You can do that research, and if I were you, I would go to oldest.org and find the oldest Bible that you can understand, which you can even go to the Coverdale, which is older than actually the Geneva, okay? And if you can understand, you pray to God, he'll bring you understanding to it, right? Another website that you can look up is Rockin' God's House. And you look up Rockin' God's House, the Apocrypha. And this will explain the 14 books of the Bible that were taken out in 1881. That's long after the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all that. Okay? And that's where I'm kind of pointing to. The Coverdale Bible, the Geneva Bible. Go back to the older texts and you'll see a more complete picture. Okay? Now, on churches. We have churches now that are 501 or 501c3 churches. These are churches that say government over God. No. If you can't find a church that's non-501c3, then don't go to it. And if you're in one of those churches, leave. It's true. Just leave. Okay? Other things about churches. If you're going into a church, and this is not sexist, ladies. It has nothing to do with sexism or, feminism or nothing. But if you have a woman pastor, you can go right into the Bible and it tells you that women actually, as Paul wrote, women are not actually supposed to even speak in church. They're supposed to if they have a question, they would wait till they get home and ask their husbands. Now, this may be offensive to some of you women, and I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. So if you have a church with a woman pastor, no, Okay, another thing, if you're in a church where gays and people like that are teaching and this, that, and the other, no, not right. Okay, leave these churches. Trying to think of what else. Let's see. And then you have to find a church that is, Bible believing. And, you go back to, like I said, when you start going back and you start praying to God through Jesus about some of this, He'll reveal it to you, and I'm giving my actual sources, So this is where I get my information from. Another thing that you might want to look up is look up 432 music in 432 hertz versus 440 hertz. Okay, and when you start doing research on that, you're gonna find there's certain PhD people with PhDs that did the studies, and they found that when they went back to the Fertile Crescent, where civilization supposedly come from, right? All the instruments, all the harps, all the pan flutes, everything was tuned in 432 hertz. Okay, not 440. And there's things like, what is it, the dark side, was it the dark side or something like that? You can look it up on YouTube and start doing the research, and you'll start to see what 440 hertz does. It messes with the head, okay? That's another thing you look up. If you're going into a church and their piano is tuned in 440 hertz, you're to bring it to that pastor's attention and you show him what you found. I'm sharing all the links with you so you can show them, every bit of health tips and everything that I give you is straight out of the Bible. I mean, the whole Bible's true. All of it. And I'm just going to put it to you this way. People misinterpret a certain scripture where Peter was given a vision. A sheet hung down from heaven with all these unclean animals in it, right? And God said, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." And Peter said, "No." And he did that 3 times. Okay? There was a different meaning for this vision, and you'll find it. And who he was talking about was Cornelius the centurion, right? And his servant or whatever, right? At the end of that, God said, "What God has purified, let no man call common or unclean." He was talking about Cornelius and his servant, because God purified Cornelius's heart and his servant, whatever, right? His servant, whatever, to bring Cornelius to Peter to be saved. Okay? That's a big misinterpretation. Okay? Jesus did not eat pork. Peter did not eat pork. Paul did not eat pork. Right? You don't eat it. And I'm just going to put it to you this way. Anything that eats dead things, you don't eat. Mushrooms, you like them mushrooms that you get in the store? Well, let me tell you something about them. Those are grown in caves. It's cool, it's dark, and it's moist. They have to spray those mushrooms with fungicide, because there's a fungus that eats fungus, see? And they have to spray it with that fungicide? Well, you're eating that. See? No. Pigs. If you go and look up the word unclean, in Hebrew it means tame. That's toxic. I mean toxic, right? You don't eat pork. at all. And that can be simply researched by, if you've been around pig farms, they stink, Their feces and urine is bad news, right? Bad news. Okay? Pork contains intestinal parasites. If you don't cook it, you eat them. But that meat is toxic. Okay? A pig has a 4-hour digestive tract. I've worked in bakeries and I've worked in dairies and places like that. Them pig farmers come in there and get anything. Stale milk, rotten milk, stale bread, donuts. They go around to all these places and they collect freaking garbage, garbage, and they slop the pigs with it, right? Well, look at the prodigal son. Wasn't that boy that left his father, was down in the pig pen, feeding the hogs, eating the husks that he was feeding the hogs? Pigs are garbage disposals, right? And let me just give you a clue here. Imagine all those old battlefields, Romans against these and that. They didn't bury those men. The pigs, the flies, the vultures, the maggots, everything ate them, right? Catfish are scavengers. Shrimp are scavengers. Clams, If it has fins and scales, you can eat it. Those animals that we're talking about, pigs, vultures, they keep you healthy by cleaning up dead stuff. They were never meant to eat. They clean up the dead stuff. They cause it to decay, right? I mean, just think about it. You got a dead antelope hanging out there that a lion just ate, right? What cleans it up? Hyenas, vultures, pigs, flies. See what I mean? Simple. Okay. Well, anyway, the lobsters and all that stuff that you eat, they got heavy metals in them. They crawl along the bottom of the ocean, and that's where all your heavy metals are at. And you're eating it. Right? Don't eat it. You got better things to eat, Fish with fins and scales, you got your bottom feeders and your fins and scales travel up here, right? Well, down here in the water, it's cold. There's no sunlight at all. Then here, there's a little bit of sunlight. Then when you get up towards the top, there's sunlight. Well, think about it. Plankton, they need that sunlight. What eats plankton? Krill. What else eats plankton? Minnows, right? And they're all up here. And these fish with fins and scales come up here and eat them. Whales eat krill, right? So, that's all I'm saying. You want them fish that swim down here in that cold water and stuff, they're healthy, right? Trying to think of what else. Now we go on to, let's see. We've covered Bibles. We've covered food, where it's in the Bible, right? We've covered churches, right? And it even gets to the point sometimes that if these churches won't do what you're telling them to do, then you get a group of people together. They're called house churches, You get a group of people together that believe some of the stuff that I'm putting out, there you go. Because, how we put this? The devil's working in the religion business. Okay? And key word, religion. Okay? Jesus did not like religion. And he made it perfectly clear to the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Right? They were all about this religion and the law and everything. Jesus said, I didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Right? The 10 Commandments are still good. They're still good, and you should try to live by them. Thou shalt not commit, thou shalt have no other God before me. Thou shalt not commit adultery, this, that, and the other, right? Any churches ain't teaching that, out. And I can tell you right now, Catholics, and you can look this up too. Look up the 10 Commandments. what the Catholic's 10 Commandments are and what the Protestant 10 Commandments are, and you'll see the difference. You know, the Catholics removed the second commandment, thou shalt not worship idols, this, that, and the other. And they split thou shalt not covet into two. To cover the fact they took that one out. Okay? So, that's where I go with that. And this is all researchable. Okay? And I'm going to give you a hint on a search engine. Okay? Use DuckDuckGo. They don't keep your search results. They don't sell them to third parties. You know, Google does. Okay? Use DuckDuckGo as your search engine for your phone. And I'll leave other tips here when I get this downloaded or uploaded, right? I'll leave other tips and I'll provide links to show you. Okay? And I'll give, there's my sources. Go look them up. Decide for yourself, you know. Don't let nobody push you into this or anything like that. You decide for yourself. Okay, let's see, what else have we got to talk about now? When I talked about the Geneva Bible being brought over here by the Pilgrims, that is the Bible, or, you know, I'm pretty sure that is the Bible by which our Constitution was wrote. Okay? We're a Judeo-Christian nation, okay? And that means, what that means is simple. God, the Bible, the Constitution, right? Then we got what? God, the Bible, Constitution, or constitutional rights, right? Which trump everything. And your federal law, state law, local law, right? And I'll add more on this subject on one of my other videos, and I'll provide links, okay? So you can check this out for yourself. So I'm going to end this one on the whole church thing. You know, those frequencies I talk about, 432 and 440, when you start looking them up, like, what is it, the dark side, or, let's see, I'll try to put it in another video or something and lead you to the link. But when you discover that 440 hertz causes psychosocial agitation, okay, you start listening to that stuff. And I used to be a musician, okay? I used to play bass guitar. I don't anymore, okay? And all our guitars were tuned in 440 hertz. That's standard tuning. But that's known as the Industrial Standard Orchestra pitch. Okay? That went out somewhere in the 30s or 40s in the United States. And I can tell you right now, Stradivarius violins are tuned in 432 hertz. Okay? 440 hertz. Hitler actually had instruments retuned to 440. That was how he was able to get people whipped up into a frenzy. Agitated and everything else. Look it up. You know, there are other things out there about American companies. You can look that up. American companies and people right here in the United States that supported Hitler in World War II. Ford Motor Company, there's one. The Bush family, Prescott Bush, there's two, right? There's videos out there on Dinesh D'Souza. If you've ever watched any of his videos, those are factual. Those are factual videos, right? Dinesh D'Souza, Hillary Clinton, the secret party, or Hillary's America, the secret history of the Democratic Party, Obama's America, Death of a Nation, all those. Those are good, right? Trying to think of what else I've got as far as information to share with you. Let's see. And then, let's see, money. Search YouTube for The Money Masters. How international bankers took control of America. Right? And you watch that video and that'll explain the Federal Reserve, the IRS, all of it, right? And what I need you to do on that is when you watch that video, the Money Masters, you need to call your congressman and demand the repeal of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. After you watch that video, you'll see why. Okay? You have to get everybody you know to start sending these videos out, this information that I'm sending out, to start this movement in the way it should go, right? If everybody called up right now, everybody, and you got all your friends to do it, right? And all your family to do it. Some people aren't going to agree, just fine. Get as many people as you can to call their congressman and demand the repeal of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. That's voices going out there letting them know that you're on to them. You know what I mean? You know what they're doing. Okay? Another thing that will clue you into what's going on in America, there's a channel on YouTube called Trey Smith. Okay, and it's called God in a Nutshell. Watch his videos, the Trump prophecy, Hillary, and all that. You start watching them videos, it's again going to clue you into what's going on. And that's about all I have for information, other than I follow other certain things. And when you want to know how to deal with police officers, simply type in YouTube, I don't answer questions. Just type that in and watch that guy. That's how you deal with police. Okay? If you see a police officer with a flag, it's gray and white with a blue line, look up the federal law on flags. Okay? They're not supposed to add anything to that flag. That flag's supposed to be red, white, and blue, right? And the stars. Nothing else. That's, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like burning the flag. People say that's freedom of speech. That's a felony under federal law. That's a felony. You know what I mean? That's a felony. Okay? Let's think of some other things too. High impact vlogs. And it's spelled vlog, VLOGS. There's another helpful thing on YouTube that you can watch to get some more information, right? Trying to think of some other ones. But Trey Smith will lay it out there on a lot of stuff that's going on with the churches, the government, and all this other stuff. And all the other videos that I've got will show you too. If you're interested in the 9/11 attack, here's a good one. The 9/11 Conspiracy Solved. Search that one up and watch it. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, because I've studied airplanes and aircraft and jet fuel. I've flown simulations. I've never been in the military, but I've read field manuals. I've studied history my whole life. Now I'm into biblical history. And here's a good one. History. History. The Bible, his story. His-story. That's God's story of his relationship with mankind. Okay? And I'm going to tell you this about the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center. JP8 jet fuel, and you can look this up. What does JP8 jet fuel burn at? What's the temperature that it burns at? Right? Now look up at the temperature on where steel goes white hot. White hot. Not red hot. White hot. And I think after white hot it goes sparkle. That's before it's getting ready to go molten. It's going to go liquid. Okay? If you could actually hold a piece of white hot steel, you can flip it like a whip or a spaghetti noodle. That's the temperature in which steel loses its structural integrity. A standard skyscraper is beam up, beam up, beam up, beam up, box on top, floor. Beam up, beam up, beam up, beam up, box, floor. The World Trade Center was simple. All those windows, there was a beam in between every one of those windows. So it was beam, window, beam, window, beam, window, beam, window. That's a cage. Okay? Not only was that jet fuel not hot enough to melt that steel, you can take an aluminum bullet and fire it at a steel beam, it'll disintegrate. But you can take a steel bullet and fire it at aluminum, it'll go through it. Those planes were made out of aluminum. And the only thing that was in them that was metal was in them engines. JP8 is highly refined diesel fuel. And those engines got compressor blades in them. They compress it and shoot it out the back. That's where they get their thrust. Okay? The only thing in their power that could even dent that was them engines. Okay? Another clue. How did the building, 5, 6, 7, how'd they come down like they did? They came down in controlled demolition, did they not? How'd they get men in there to tear all that insulation and all that walls out to get to them beams to rig them? If that beam's straight up and down, they cut it like this, and the other beam over on the other side, they cut it like this. That's so them walls, them beams fall in on each other and it comes straight down. There's no way they could get men in there within an hour, a half an hour, in all those buildings to bring them down. Okay? And there's no way that a terrorist could be trained to fly a Cessna aircraft. It's all needles and gauges. That aircraft's way more maneuverable than a 767 jetliner. That's number one. Number two, needles and gauges, that don't work in an electronic cockpit. I've flown jet simulators, and the FA-18E Super Hornet, I was learning every button on that multifunction display, every master arm, all this stuff, right? And I can fly that plane in simulation. That plane's not maneuverable enough and not accurate enough to hit that building where it hit it. And there's a reason. When you look up 9/11 conspiracy solved, you'll see it. Okay? It was known as a false flag operation in which it brought in the DHS, Department of Homeland Security. The CIA is not slated or not authorized to operate on American soil. The FBI is. DHS was created so the FBI and the CIA could share information. No. George Bush Sr. was an ex-director of the CIA. And you can look him up too. Prescott Bush, George Bush Jr. Let's go back to what we remember, folks. When Ronald Reagan got out of office, who came in? George Bush Sr. And there was an assassination attempt on Reagan, right? Go back and look at all your assassinated presidents. Lincoln, Kennedy, Reagan. Just follow it back, right? And when you start following, the history of the Federal Reserve and all that, you'll see it. Dinesh D'Souza's videos will show it. The Money Masters will show all that stuff. So those are my links, and that's my information. So, look it up, folks, And, we want to bring God, we want God back in this country, right? We want our constitutional rights. And the videos that I've told you about will show you what was going on and who's actually trying to get us back to it. President Trump, when you want to talk about health, he signed an executive order called the Right to Try, which means you can go to your doctor under that executive order, the right to try, and try all my tips that I give you. And that doctor, all he does is sign off so that he can't get sued, right? But he has to let you try what you want to help cure yourself, right? He signed that so people did not fly all over Europe, all over these other places trying to find a cure. The cure is right in the Bible. And I'm giving you some of them. You can try all these things. But remember, non-GMO versus GMO. And this is a simple eating rule. If God made it and sanctified it, eat it. If man made it or tampered with it, leave it alone. And that applies to a lot of stuff. If God, if God made it and sanctified it, worship Him. Who made Jesus? The Holy Spirit. So shouldn't we be worshiping Jesus? Take care, folks.